Okay, wonderful. If you see what I see, you should be, viewing this presentation inside a metaverse space. Well, that's the first surprise. And the second surprise is towards the end of the seminar, you will be actually, allowed walking into the metaverse space and be able to check out some of the things that we have in here. For example, if I just do a quick rotation, and you can see that I have in fact reproduced some of the slides that I'll be using in the metaverse space. So later on you can actually come in and check out some of those slides in a little bit more detail. Okay, so let me configure it back so that we can kickstart our seminar. Right, today's seminar is delivered by myself and also by Ms. Nicole C. from the Arab University of East Asia. And we are delighted to have an audience, an international audience, not just from Hong Kong, but also from as far as Africa, Europe, India, and many other countries as well. So good afternoon and good morning to all of you. So allow me to start. The topic for today's talk is retention and transfer of tacit knowledge, challenges and opportunities, and in fact case studies, and indeed a very important topic, something that both in academic world has been heavily researched, no universal proven solution, and also in the industry, of course, that's happening every day and costing a lot of money, should I say. So that's precisely right. As recent as 7 or 8 days ago, I saw this in the newspaper or in the news. Again, the organizations are at a loss in the bizarre loss and leakages of knowledge, especially tacit knowledge. When people leave, when people retire, when they are turned over in the organization. So today's talk, we try to look into a little bit more detail about the importance of tacit knowledge and why it is deserving our much needed attention to try to retain, to transfer as much as possible without much leakage between employees. And we also look at, for example, right now, what our organization is doing and why. What are the reasons why organizations having so many blockages and leakages in knowledge flow? Can anything be done in order to reduce these blockages and enable the flow to do better? Well, what our organization is doing now in terms of knowledge transfer, in terms of training or retraining, are these adequate? And how can these methods be further improved? Then from the KM perspective, what are the established KM techniques for knowledge retention and transfer? In order to apply these techniques, what do we have to pay attention to? Especially about, for example, among other things, the type of knowledge, the context, the capabilities of the people, and the settings of the environment, among other things. So, I would like to touch on to those things and more, and there will be, some case studies to share with you as well, both from myself and from Nicole. Now, I assume that I'm speaking loud enough and probably at a appropriate speed. Now, if that is not judged to be the case, please let me know. I have a helper on standby in the chat box. So if you think that I can improve my clarity and delivery better, please let me know. Well, I don't seem to receive any input, so it's fine. Right, so let's go with tacit knowledge. Of course, leakage and retention and transfer of knowledge applies to all types of knowledge. But we all know, that this is not a KM elementary seminar. Tacit knowledge is a lot more voluminous, a lot more important, and a lot more, should I say, volatile. It's very, difficult to quantify, to put a finger on. We don't even know what we know, among other things. So this interesting short video helped to illustrate, the importance of tacit knowledge. So let's have a look. Whoops, sorry. Right, I think everyone is overwhelmed by that. I cannot think of a better illustration than this short video. Effort is important, but knowing where to pay the effort, it's even more, phenomenal. So the writings on the wall, tacit knowledge, it's, comparatively speaking, compared with explicit knowledge, it always is the much more important one than explicit knowledge. So the challenge is how to reduce the leakage, how to, harness as much as possible. Can some of that can be codified? What about those that cannot be codified? So among all these, what will be, the best possible solution that we can put up so that we can reduce or try to reduce the leakage when people leakage of knowledge, when people transfer tasks, when people are rotated, when people leave the organization, when people retire from the organization. So knowledge has always been a very compelling factor in our society. It's of obviously growing importance. Now, knowledge management is not new. We've been talking about this for the last 20 years or even longer. But right now, I think it's becoming even more pressing. The reason is, if you go through this illustration of the revolutions, the industrial revolutions that the world has gone through, we went from agriculture to building tools. Okay, I need to suppress all the audio from all other speakers, okay? Or all other attendees. All right, so we went from agricultural revolution to industrial revolution, building tools. Then we discover electricity, and then we have, the industrial revolutions on machineries, large plants, factory. We talk about efficiency, automation, and so forth. But now we are into the information and knowledge era. We compete not just based on speed. We compete based on knowing what and how to generate new values based on collective wisdom. However, you would have to agree that much of the world's thinking is still, very much stuck in the third industrial revolution days. You only have to look at these three value disciplines, whether you are in the civil service or in the private practice, and that is, we are drawn to try to do the best in all these three dimensions. First one is operational excellence, which Hong Kong does very well, I believe. That is speed, productivity, lowering costs, consistency, accuracy. The ability to deliver with quality, speed, and low cost. Then there's customer intimacy. How much we know about the customer, whether it's the financial customers or people that you need to serve. Can we individualize our recommendations? Can we individualize our offering to our customers? Then there's also the product service leadership. How much do you know about the market? How much do you know about what people need, your customer needs? Can you reach out to the customers? Can you produce these products and services? So, the theory is, if an organization can make a very good, achievement out of these three, then no doubt you'll be riding on top That's the old thinking. But even that, of course, no organization, no matter how successful you are, you have all the resources, and no organization can actually excel in all the three. At most, you may be doing excellent in two of these three, but maybe just average or above average in the third one. But this is not enough. This is not enough in the fourth industrial revolution. We'll come back to this point later on. Well, if you go through the 4 eras of industrial revolutions, again, reinforcing what I just said, much of our thinking is still very much rooted because of the education, because of the work tasks around us, because of the work culture, because of the processes rooted in the third industrial revolution days. Look at these terms, efficiency, optimization, load balancing, automation, control. These are all, the keywords, characteristics, things to go for in the third industrial revolution. Because at that time, we go for speed, the training for people in the third industrial revolution. They are, they are very individually trained. The tasks are very decomposed into individual specialist tasks, and the people are trained to operate that task with efficiency, with competence, and be able to repeat that with accuracy many times. So that's not in the factory, but in the organization as well, because the whole thing in society has to be in synchronization of this third industrial revolution. This is where we came from. So you look at organizational structure. The normal structure is you have layers of people, at different levels to assert what? To make sure that things are being done, things can be controlled, and to apply governance. While that is good because you have full control, or theoretically, as much control that you can afford, and you can also measure about performance in different parts. That actually inhibits knowledge flow. That actually inhibits knowledge flow in a very big way. And this is where we are now paying the penalty, right? Because look at this, an analogy to the previous slide. If your organization have a lot of hierarchy, you have a lot of business units, sub-units, and so forth. While those units may be performing very well, they are well-oiled, they're efficient, and so forth. But knowledge flow does not get across the business unit. So, similar to this analogy is the diagram here, where you see, the pipes, underground pipes or under building pipes. They don't cross over, and pipes enable things inside the pipe to flow freely and efficiently. But sadly, there's no cross-fertilization or cross-flow between the pipes, and that goes the same with knowledge in the hierarchical organizations. So with KM, we have been applying that for many years, and no doubt looking at the attendance list, many of you are right in the thick of it. We apply KM to govern optimization, to improve the efficiency. We apply KM to harness good practice, to make sure that we repeat, at least repeat, or even better, the previous good practices that our predecessors or the organization has demonstrated. Well, while this is all important, once again, as we transform more and more into the fourth industrial revolution, KM need to expand more, because I believe knowledge and innovation very much collectively as well as individually hold the key to success. Merely using KM to harness good practice, merely using KM to control processes, to improve and optimize processes, that's not going to get us there in the fourth industrial revolution. You only have to think about the digitized society. What about it? Well, what about it? The things are everywhere. It can much easier to be found, to be connected, to be discovered, than in the previous days. And now we're equipped with lots and lots of tools online that enable us to operate on these connections, on these nodes that is in the digital society. And these nodes or these connections could represent computational resources. They can represent people. They can represent people networks. They can represent equipment, and they can represent other types of information like documents, data, and so forth. So it's really a very powerful, powerful layers of network, surrounding us that we should tap into. And no doubt we have to grow our game effort into the external world. Excuse me. Well, that said, I'm a little bit ahead of the slide. In fact, the academics have also explained this phenomenon. Basically, there are three driving forces that accumulates in stating that knowledge and innovation are so important. Firstly is the advancement of ICT tools. Now we are increasingly being empowered and made available to access a lot of tools free of charge, and in the public domain. And secondly, the informations are more readily available. Unfortunately, there's a downside to it. There's the information part, and we are, submerged, right, and flooded by information. But like it or not, there are good stuff and not so good stuff in there. So the challenge is to be able to differentiate what are the good stuff from the average stuff and the bad stuff. Then there's also, as I just mentioned, about the demolishing of or the reduction of hierarchy in organization. What that means is more and more people, individuals like you and I, are able to share, are able to reach out to the rest of the world and demonstrate whatever we have, and reach out to the rest of the world and seek help to build connections and expand capabilities. So combining this, it's easy to conclude that in fact those who are smart would be able to explore and make use of all these connections, tools, and the accessibility of information to do good things for knowledge and innovation. Well, exactly in that regard, unfortunately, organizations are not doing too well, at all, right? Just reflection. In organizational space, we process or we encounter and process a lot of information and knowledge, right? And these can be differentiated into internally generated information knowledge as well as externally generated. And I think you would also agree up to now, based on my understanding and reading, the absolute majority of PM efforts tend to be internally focused. And even that, if you run your eyes over this list of things where internal information and knowledge being generated, we hardly accomplish in documenting all these and putting this in the proper place and offering good retrieval to all these things that are being generated internally, let alone the external space. What I told you just now is true. The external space, or the knowledge exists in the external space, is a lot more important, and we can't even handle the internal space well, let alone tackling the external space. But unfortunately, we have to, and that is where the opportunity lies. And in fact, research has rightly justified and demonstrated that organizations need to expand their efforts, knowledge, and information aspect to link up with the external world, to make good use of information from the external world, learn from the external networks, and be able to assimilate what you learn with what you are doing in PM and innovation, right? And there's a term called absorptive capacity that actually defines, how organizations articulate, assimilate, and make use of externally sourced information, combining with their internal knowledge and information to expand capabilities to generate and pursue new opportunities. Unfortunately, and there are, always problems in this journey, or even insights into doing better and better PM. Organizations have a lot of leakages and blockage. While on the one hand, there seems to be a lot of information and knowledge generated.
The automobile that you own, that you drive to school and back, or to work in
organizations. Can we suppress the audio of the attendees, please? Thank you. Right, you can see that, in an average case, the organization obviously employ people, maybe groups of people to handle the work. They may be working individually, and chances are they may be working in the project as well. So, the discussions, tacit knowledge, communications, project communications, and more, much of these are not documented. So you have already, knowledge leakage already, in this particular space. Then, as most of you are probably aware, typical approaches to PM solution is to build repositories and also create communities as well. Then use search engine to search all the codified assets and so forth. There are also linkages there. Why? Because search engines are not perfect. Things may not be coded up with the right metadata. So again, there are linkages and mismatches. Okay. Then if you take that to the organizational context, not just in an individual corner of an organization, but a large organization may have different units. So there could be, inter-organizational, intra-organizational or inter-business unit flow of knowledge. So there are, again, linkages. And then between organizations, there are inter-organizational interactions. So therefore, there are inter-organizational knowledge loss as well. So, unfortunately, the diagram seems to give us closer to the real picture. There are leakages of knowledge everywhere in the organization. Well, what is corporations doing, or what are corporations doing, or what is the world's best practice? Now, I'm not a training expert, but I'm led to believe that these are some very commonly used methods by organizations to try to attempt to try to practice the transfer of knowledge and to retain some of those training, the meetings, communications, write it down, and so that other people can read it and reinterpret what you are trying to express, right? Mentoring, it's probably the most effective one out of this whole page, but it is coming at a big cost because it is very expensive in terms of time and the care that you have to put in. And then in the worst case, I've also seen organizations scrambling to open up the black box, open up their systems and reverse engineer from some of the system code to see why the logic is being built in that way to process a particular type of information. So, this is obviously not the full list, but we'll come back to this because I think you would have to agree. These combination of methods, while there are some successes, but overall speaking, it hasn't done much to reduce the significant loss of knowledge when people leave, when they are turned over, and when they are restructuring and they are retired. Well, of course, Nicole will tell you more, for organizations like many of yours, which are already adopting KM. Hopefully, you craft the right strategy, you are, applying the right tools to the processes that enable at least, a certain part of the internal knowledge being retained, properly documented, and put into a repository or, carried by the heads of the people in the communities, right, so that they can be at least retained and shared. Hopefully, that all adds up to the success. Success can be demonstrated in commercial organizations by expanding your market share, gaining more customers, profitability. In the civil service could be by consistency and quality of the decisions, the care and the quality of services that you provide to your stakeholders, to your customers. Well, again, this is not a KM 101 course. Everybody would know, typically, the entry point for many organizations to start with KM is to codify. Codify like mad about things that they believe are good practices and so forth, so that at least there's something that hold on to, something that looks like it's being captured, it's being retained, something that other people who are not accustomed to this particular process can pick up to read and hopefully can reinterpret the situation. And that approach, typically, it's by selecting certain types of assets to be codified, set a process in motion, and then for the more vigorous ones, for more rigorous organization that that treat knowledge or core knowledge to be very important, they may have a team that actually go and vet the knowledge to make sure that what's being retained, what's being submitted, what's being documented indeed is the norm, is the right way to present it, and therefore they would put a team together and vet that process as well as the knowledge on an ongoing basis. That's a good practice actually, but that's only half the story, because with codification, obviously you're not doing that at the Mickey Mouse scale, you're doing it reasonably large scale. So at reasonably large scale, you would have generate a reasonably large amount of documents, links, content, and therefore you need some kind of retrieval mechanism. You need some kind of information classification scheme, i.e. taxonomy, which Nicole will alert you about a workshop that she will be conducting towards the end of this session here. So all the rest comes as additional work that you have to do in order to fulfill codification, right? However, codification, we all know, is that a strong method? No, it's a weak method. It's a weak method compared to its counterpart, the personalization. Why is it weak? Well, because knowledge cannot be easily codified. Knowledge has a context, and with the context, which can vary enormously, then the meaning and the interpretation takes shape in everyone's mind, right, everyone's head. So, given the same piece of information that is being codified, when I read it, I may come up with, or I may construe an interpretation which is different from you, from anybody else, although we are reading the same thing, because much of the context is not fully codified. It cannot be fully codified because it's an endless game there, right? So because of the inadequacy of the codification of the context among the piece of knowledge, and therefore everyone who reinterpret that piece of knowledge would have to throw in or make up the rest of the context himself or herself, and this is where the problem starts. Now the late Professor Max Boyzot also documented this very nicely. Unfortunately, it is less known. Boyzot's I-Space, for those of you familiar or at least interested in his work, I-Space is Professor Boyzot's framework to describe knowledge, and he advocates that knowledge go through different transition in an organization. Well, it is being codified, it is being abstracted, and it's being perpetrated or disseminated inside the organization. Diffuse is the word we use. All knowledge go through this state, on a repetitive basis. So you can see this rate of smoke or ashes, and the gray area is the extensiveness of the dimension, right? And Professor Boyzot argues that when you codify something, there is an array of dimensional elements that you should also document. But because no one has the full knowledge, no one has the full resources to document everything, and therefore only a subset of that dimension is being codified. And therefore, that reduces that makes the rest of the dimension subject to personal interpretation, and that's where the leakage starts. Well, of course, codification's problem doesn't stop there. Even though that you codify things correctly, there are more technical problems waiting for you there to tackle, and typically is our familiar phrase, the search engines. And this is not a lecture in the search engine, but I'd like to remind everybody that there are also serious problems to overcome in search engines about the configuration, about the ranking, about the metadata to be assigned, about the ongoing healthiness, about fine-tuning of search engines, and so forth. For those of you who are interested, on the right, I can provide a link later. I have a video that goes for about 7 minutes that talks about what future search engine should be smart in terms of being really able to deliver what is search. In fact, I redefine the whole meaning of search in the knowledge space. Well, considering the codification that everyone agrees is the weak method, then luckily, at least, we have a stronger method, and that is personalization. And it's a nice word to start with, because with the word personalization, it sounds personal, and that's right, so we start with people, whereas codification strives to link people with information, personalization strives to link people with people, a lot nicer, we are humans, right? So, personalization is about linking up people who have an interest to share, to know, to learn about a piece of knowledge. It's typically, with the support of technology, enable for those people to be discovered, to be linked, to be connected, and for them to communicate, to discuss, to brainstorm, to innovate. Typically, if you have a problem in the organization, you would like to ask, for example, who can solve my problem? Now sending out an email to everybody in a large organization would not be a wise move. So, having a community, it's a wise strategy, and communities, it's a key weapon or key tactic to apply in personalization. And Xerox started about 50 years ago with the Eureka knowledge base, and that is it started as simple as a bunch of technicians, senior and junior technicians, who have gone through training to learn about all the latest new models of the Xerox multifunctional machines at that time. They are very new, but despite the training, there are always some difficult or cooey solutions that many technicians does not know how to solve despite attending the training. So the senior technicians, being more experienced, similar to the retired the engineer of the ship that we played in the video before, took the effort of writing some sticky notes or very brief points about if you encounter this situation, for this particular new model, this could be the problem. So check this and check that. So these little tips were stored in a repository, and being a global company, Xerox has made it easy and available for all the staff to check. So junior technicians earn a lot, they gain a lot in having access to this tip sheets that's being provided by the senior technicians, because obviously they are more experienced, they are more cluey in spotting the problem. And I suppose, among my reading, the Aerospace Corporation, as reported in U.S. textbook by Professor Lebowski, has done it very well. They're able, as reported, to mesh together the codification strategy and also the personalization strategy by setting up communities, but assigning roles to members of community who are, attending to the roles of informing, soliciting people about good practices, vetting the good practice, maintaining it, ensuring it's ongoing product, and then making sure that they are put in a place where it can be found, can be retrieved easily. So, I see that that's a very good, combination of the codification and the personalization approach, and manifests as a community of practice or communities of practice by the Aerospace Corporation in America. Well, here in Hong Kong, we are also very excited about communities. You only have to look at this poster and pictures, and that was about 7 or 8 years ago. So that means 7 or 8 years ago in Hong Kong, there are already major companies that have well-established communities, and probably you have also followed that as well for the past 8 years. Set up communities, learning communities for our case, to help share knowledge, as well as act as a helping community whenever there are junior staff, new staff they are hungry for knowledge, coming along and request for something that may be known within the community. If not, community may together collectively brainstorm and help to shed light on that solution. So before we end this topic here, codification and personalization, how do we decide which one to use and how much we use? Well, it's a difficult decision to make. I've offered my personal opinion there. It depends on a range of factors, and also the balance may not be equal. So at different stages of the KM journey, organization may apply one particular technique a lot more than the others. For example, initially, so you may apply codification, assuming that you pick the right asset and process to work with, and then gradually, you shift more and more to personalization. That's just one way, right? But you have to play it dynamically. But what we do know is codification is weak and is inappropriate if the knowledge is too much tacit, put it this way, or the context changes too frequently, right? And if you have to apply something, different context, then codifications it's not very suitable or not very good at supporting the reuse of knowledge, whatever is being documented. On the other hand, the personalization seems to be better in terms of handling contextual differences, but of course there's a limit. But personalization may take more time because that's people's time, that you need to they need to convey, and you need trust and bonding in order to run or operate effective communities. So both have their pros and cons. Again, there's no one's universal solution. Possibly success is the right combination of these two, and you may have to adjust the blend or the portfolio of each one of these on an ongoing basis. Well, let's go to the mainstream of this day's talk. What can we do in terms of trying to reduce the leakage and enable the knowledge transfer? Can we capture knowledge, right? Can we retain knowledge? Well, before I go into that, I'd like to point up the three common myths, misconceptions about retention of knowledge and also about retirement. First one is we have visited this before. Knowledge is socially contextualized, constructed or contextualized. In other words, there's a content to actually every piece of knowledge. Knowledge cannot be just to tear out and be able to document it and put it into a document, assuming that that is the only form. Far from it, as I've explained earlier. Second, knowledge retention is not limited to just storing something in a repository. Knowledge retention is not limited to storing, for example, codified documents in a repository. There are other ways, like harnessing a good community, harnessing loyal employees, so that while these knowledge retain in the organization, they retain in people's hands, retain in a group of loyal people who have strong bond, strong trust, willing to share and easy to share. And thirdly, retirement of staff does not mean the end of knowledge sharing. No, far from it. I've seen organizations that actually, invite retirees to come back, either on a work basis, contract basis, or even on a social basis. The organization that actually organize, for example, reunion hours, social hours, right? That routinely invite previously retired people to come back to the organization and create opportunities. That's it. Create opportunities for these experienced people to again connect and share with the existing staff. So, how to retain knowledge so that to reduce their leakages? Well, you may start to think that, hey, we codify the knowledge, assuming that we pick the right knowledge, we carry out knowledge transfer, and we cultivate a cozy environment with trust. That is true, but don't miss out the first step. What is the first step? In fact, the first step is step 0. I like to remind everybody, including myself, is no one organization, no matter how big and how powerful you are, have all the resources in order to document what you have. So you need to identify precisely the critical knowledge, or so-called critical knowledge, according to your requirements, that you decide to be worth your team to spend the efforts on. I like this diagram because I think this cartoon illustrates it very well. Because we need to identify the critical or at-risk knowledge. Otherwise, if you don't do anything about it, such knowledge may be lost. Such knowledge could be capitalized by your competitors or otherwise. Right? But it's like a needle in a haystack, right? Critical knowledge is may not be easily visible to you, not even to the experienced people. So there needs to be a methodology in order to systematically, to tease out critical knowledge. And again, as time changes and external environment changes, as your KM journey matures, critical knowledge may change from time to time. So not the focus of today's seminar. Again, there's a field called knowledge audit, which I believe some, if not, many, or if not some organizations among the audience here have at least give it a go in trying start the methodology and processes, very process driven, and documentation heavy, in order to identify the necessary tacit and explicit knowledge, the flow of such knowledge, so that your organization can further decide whether to harness, how to harness, and what priority that you should assign to it. Well, recently we talked about the flow of knowledge. In fact, the leakage of knowledge. The situation is even worse. Why? Because I haven't even mentioned about the retirement syndrome, as well as the turnover in your industry. So in terms of retirement, it's no joke. We are now towards the end part of the baby boomers retirement syndrome. What that means is those who were born to 1945 to 1960, they are also nearly in the ending part of their retirement after 65 years of age, and therefore organizations should have done a lot more before people will retire. Our research in the center has identified this list of company applied knowledge retention measures, techniques, and some of these are game techniques, some are management, leadership, and mentoring techniques that can be applied in terms to reduce the knowledge leakage from people retiring from the organization. And I'd like here to remind everybody that knowledge transfer is not just blinding to be applied to all types of knowledge. In order to do this well, we have to be clear about what types of knowledge, what are the teams that are actually passing over the knowledge, what are the teams that are actually absorbing the knowledge, what are the capabilities of these people, are they having the same level of expertise, what is the context? The context is very important, same context, similar context, different context, okay, as well as the frequency and the environment, the activities that you are designing for this transfer to occur. So all these things they matter materially about the success of knowledge transfer. And it's a great piece of work by Professor Nancy M. Dixon, and I strongly encourage you to access her book, Common Knowledge, that she tabulates 5 types of knowledge transfer, and I've listed here in my view, increasing order of risk or escalating risk. First one, serial transfer. The same team, does another task in a similar context. Well, that's the same team. There's no transfer of knowledge at all. So the same group of people, now they have done some task well. You're going to apply, or you're going to ask these group of people to do something, different, but in a similar context. Well, that depends on the expertise of these people. That depends on the experience. That also depends on how different or how similar that new task is from the previous one, in order to estimate success, I suppose. Second one is near transfer. The receiving team does the task similar to that of the source team, but in a similar context. All right, so that sounds quite good, In other words, you have two teams, they're working on the same thing, but in two different locations, right? So one team has mastered a particular skill, right? And you would like this team to voice out, to describe, and show the second team how to do it. And common sense tells us that that's probably a good chance of success, because the two teams are working on very similar concept already. So whatever the first team says, the concept will sink in quite well, with the second team, assuming that there's no communication gap. The third one, far transfer. The receiving team does the task similar to that of the source team, but in a different context, right? Again, although the receiving team and the source team, they're working in a similar context, but the receiving team this time, they have to tackle a different task, right? they have to tackle a different task in a different context. Well, then I suppose the chance of success is very much hinges on how different is this context, different from the previous one, and whether the people's skills and experience in the receiving team are capable of reusing the knowledge, adjusting the knowledge, in order to come up with a solution in this new task in a different context. The next one, getting more and more riskier, right? Expert transfer. The receiving team does a different task of the source team, but in a similar context. So despite two teams having similar skills and working in a similar environment, the second team, you ask them to do something different, totally different. Well, again, your guess is as best as mine. Is how different this new task is. Is the team prepared to tackle this task? The skills and experience matching? That's all coming into play. The fifth one, strategic transfer. The receiving team does the task that impact the whole organization, right? Not just the particular unit. In a context different from that of the source team. Wow. In this case, I think it's the most complex one out of this page, because the second team, right, does the task that impacts the whole organization and in a context that is different from the source team, right? So the source team can communicate, and try to communicate as much as possible to the receiving team, but the receiving team will be doing something that is far more impactful, and then the context is also different. So when you've got so many things, so many wheels turning, independently, and at the same time, you can imagine the complexity that can easily, derail the success of your knowledge transfer. Now, I apologize for the sound, but I still like to play this 2 minutes, and it's very nice to hear, in person, Nancy M. Dixon, Professor Dixon, in PolyU classroom, explaining the near transfer.
How similar the context was. Like in some companies, like in Ford Motor Company, the context was very similar. How many people have ever been in an automobile factory? Well, I suppose they're even an assembly, any kind of assembly line factory. So if there's a Ford Motor Company in Germany and a Ford Motor Company in Detroit and another one in Alabama, all of them make the truck the exact same way. They put on the bumper the same way, they put on the wheels the same way, they do everything the same way, they do it in the same order and sequence. The thing that comes off the line is exactly the same, and they probably do it 200 or 300 times a day, that many automobiles, all right? So it's very repetitious, and the context is similar. So if somebody in Stuttgart, Germany, learns a new way to put on the bumper, like normally they put on the bumper with 5 bolts. If this person has learned how to do it with 3 bolts, which saves 10 seconds, they can send that information to Alabama, and those people can pick it up like that, and they can put it on the new way, right? Because the context is exactly the same. And it is easy to transfer knowledge between contexts that are the same. Much easier than when the contexts are different. So that's one of the things I looked at. Okay, to what extent is the context the same? And that gives us a clue about how we're going to transfer knowledge. If the context is the same, very often you can transfer it by writing it down, right? So that was one thing I looked at. Another thing I looked at, and so that's this little column here. How similar the context was. Like in
Right, and I'd just like to supplement a little bit. David DeLong has also done very good work in complementing what Professor Nancy has said, and this time he investigates the alignment of the different methods to support knowledge transfer, and in particular, he also tried to quantify about the amount of time that is needed for different methods in order to be enabling effective knowledge transfer. So that helps us to better plan knowledge transfer. Depending on the types of knowledge And depending on the skills of the people, you have to allow, the short-term, medium-term, or long-term for some knowledge to be transferred effectively. Many of the things cannot be done merely in a seminar, in a 1 or 2 days workshop and things like that. And in this case, Chevron has surely, applied what David DeLong has said, and in their knowledge transfer of knowledge from different teams, they have appropriately aligned different methods to enable to support of the knowledge transfer. But not only that, they have also allocated appropriate time for different teams and individuals to absorb that knowledge, to permeate that knowledge, to diffuse that knowledge, so that they become a master of that piece of knowledge. All right. So when you after you've heard all that, going back to what I showed you earlier about what organizations are typically or commonly doing in knowledge transfer, I hope that you do understand now that in fact it has to be more detailed and careful planning when you try to orchestrate knowledge transfer in organization. It's not as simple as running a few seminars or organizing a one-day workshop and so forth. It depends on a lot of things. Among other things, context, people's skills, the time that is needed, the method you're going to use, and also the activities that and the environments that you're going to provide. Okay, so I'd like to quickly just go through a case study that we have done, and then pass it over to Nicole, who will elaborate and give you more examples that she has actually worked on. And this is a case with a Hong Kong battery company where we have done the extensive knowledge audit with them and identified that among the staff who may be retiring or will be retiring, and also due to all sorts of other situations like the automation, company laid off, immigration, and so forth. What are the group of people that are likely to be leaving the organizations to build up the technical knowledge repository, knowledge of the relationship and the networks of these people, and also to identify whether some of these people are technical staff or admin staff and so forth. With that, we can generate a register. We help the organization to generate a register of people with their different priorities, indicating that their likelihood and the expected time that they may leave the organization. So once that list is being identified, resources are put in to identify for each of those employees, identify the projects that he or she has worked on, the key competencies of that staff, technical, administrative, managerial, and so forth, and whether there are any replacement staff who can stay in and do the job, and or succession plan is already being drafted up. Obviously, as you can imagine, answers to the above would help the company to further identify what resources and what processes need to put in place in order to start the knowledge transfer with those pending retirees. And with that, we have the organization develop a knowledge retention strategy. We went further by generalizing some of the things that I've just said and identified the types of knowledge that are operating in the manufacturing industry, and also the alignment of the knowledge and the processes to organizational strategy. And then we rank that into high risk of losing knowledge, medium risk, or low risk of losing knowledge. Obviously, now is not the time for me to elaborate on it, but it's already published. So for those who are seriously interested, you can do a search of this title in the Wide Journal of Information Knowledge Management Systems, and it's published there, so you can see all the details there. Now, I need to take a sip of water. It's an excellent opportunity for me to pass on to from Arab, Nicole C, who will be elaborating on more case studies on knowledge transfer. Nicole, over to you, please.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Professor Choi. So in the next around 10 to 15 minutes, so I'm going to share with you some more cases. Just recap what Professor Choi just mentioned about when doing the knowledge management. So the three critical things we have to confirm, like before we move on. First of all, like what is the critical knowledge in your company, and then like when we should embed the KM in the which part of the working process, and then finally like where we can find how we can allow our colleague to find our knowledge. So from the different kind of the repository. So now I'm going to use some few cases to elaborate with you. So next please. So the first case I want to share with you is one of the company. They really, I think, is really smart because they try to divide the staff in different stage because in the different stage of the working life they may have a different attitude to thinking about the knowledge management or knowledge capturing. So they call the free interview. In the they call the first one will be entry. They're thinking about like when all the new staff they come to just join the company. Maybe you will think it's you're totally new to this company, nothing we can capture from you. But this is a good opportunity for us to capture the external knowledge because when they just join the company, so maybe still they're still new to company. A lot of really will quite happy to join different kind of knowledge capturing. So during this entry interview, knowledge capturing section, so they will try to ask the colleague to share like what is the working practice or a good lesson learned from the previous company. So from the sharing section, they will think about like anything they can capture to reapply in their existing company. So this is a few government department also adopt this approach because most of the government people they work in the department for a long time. So maybe they will have a gap to like whether the working practice outside the government in the private organization. So some of the government department they will just take up this part entry interview. The second E will be the expert. While the staff work in this company for certain years, so they know the environment, they already build some working practice in that company. So in that part, we will try to also capture the knowledge from that particular domain. But because of this staff already starting busy because of working here, maybe so every day they will say like, oh, I have another more important job. They will maybe say reluctant to join your sharing section. So I think most of the KM people were facing this problem. So how this company tackle this issue? During the interview, they will not just keep a lot of questions asking how to do. They will ask them to review the existing working process, try to structure the knowledge, transfer in the process base. That means ask this colleague to try to write up if they have already have a process available. This staff just only review the process, review, and then if any update on that. So if not, they will ask this colleague try to develop, try to write up the process, working process for that particular job. Because this part is more easy for the knowledge transfer. For the people, it's more for people to interpret. Is it need to build the... Okay. So you see like there are two different methods for different stage of the colleague. The last for the people that leaving the company, the last E will be exit interview. This is not similar to the exit interview that is conducted by the HR department. Actually, this is conducted by KM team. They will try to because the last the period the people to stay, maybe there's the busy to wrap up his work. So that's why I will ask them, okay, not have a really full interview. Just ask them to review all the process, any enhancement. So this company they try to capture the knowledge. So in different stage, use different methods. So this is I want to share with you. So the next one is a lot of people say like, hey, the department head want to conduct the KM, but most of the people come to us say like how to do the KM, what kind of the knowledge we should capture, what kind of knowledge we should focus, we should put it in the portal. So we always thinking the KM like should be aligned with the corporate strategy. So in this government department, we already having KM for over 10 years. So every year, every 2 years, okay, we will do what we call the environmental scan. So basically, we will not change the KM program, but the theme, the focus, the knowledge focus will be changing every 2 years. So we will work on the KM plan. For example, they will do the environmental scan, like I'll have the step analysis, try to scan around the world, like what is the changes on the social, political, economic, and the technology, and how this impact the operation. So in order to decide like what kind of the knowledge they should have for the like coming operation. So next please. So with all the insight, so we will identify like what is the knowledge gap with our existing colleague, with our existing knowledge repository, what kind of the knowledge we are missing. So how we can capture. So as I remember the last environmental scan that we did, we found out a lot of gap because there's a big changes in Hong Kong in the last few years. So that's why they identify a lot of knowledge gap. Those knowledge actually even we cannot capture within the company. So that's why the latest KM strategy will try to explore like any opportunity or what kind of strategy we can capture the knowledge from the outside. So there's a totally different than the previous KM strategy plan. So I would highly recommend some participant here. So don't just think like in the workshop you heard about different KM tools and then go back to see. Tools is only the minor thing. What kind of the knowledge we should keep is the most critical for us in our KM strategy. So the next please. Another I just mentioned is when or how we can embed the KM in the daily operation, because we always think about like I want to conduct the knowledge sharing section and then we'll set up the sharing section. This is sometimes a lot of colleagues will think about like this is only your job, not my job, and also they will have a busy work. So that's why when we think about the KM, we want to capture the knowledge more effective. We'll think about like how to embed the KM activity in their daily operation. Okay, so this one we try to conduct the next six. Yeah, this one we is doing capturing the knowledge in the call center, because we usually when we like think that I already identified what is the critical knowledge. For example, in the call center, so because most of the customer service colleague actually they are working independent, they have a lot of skill set like how to like answer the question, how to minimize the call time. So that's why because they have a different roster, different shift, so different group of people working in different time, so they only have a small time gap, time slot they can really overlap. For example, you will see like 10-minute sharing section. This is the shortest sharing session that I ever to do it. But because because every there's a two time slot, two group of people, they only have a 10-minute time is overlap. So that's why we will conduct the sharing session in just 10 minutes. We adopt the after action review. So in that one, we only have 4 questions, say like in the last few days. So what is you think is you're really proud to like handle the call? They will share, and they also shared some bad experience. Like, so can you share some difficult cases how you handle? So everybody will just like a few words to try to share the knowledge, like how they handle. And then after the adoption, someone will capture everything to enhance the FAQ in order to like keep this record for the future sharing. And then the next one is and also because the next please. When we're doing the knowledge capturing, so we'll usually use the word say like lesson learned. So lesson learned will give the people is really have a pleasure and or really have a negative feeling. Say like lesson learned, that means you want me to come here to share something what I did wrong. So that's right. We developed one program we call the Take Two, that we try to use another angle. This model we try to adopt from after action review. But we want to say like, take two, we try to ask our participants, try to imagine. So if we have a chance to do the same project again, so what you will do differently. So and then people will say, which just ask them to identify which part they will do differently. It doesn't mean have to be wrong, but maybe according to the latest technology, according to the latest skill, so we will do it differently. Maybe because now we have a lot of digital solution. So if we do the same project again, we will embed a lot of our latest technology in that project. So this one is we found out is really effective. First of all, people can have a reflection on what we did, what is the lesson learned from that one, and also we can ask some expert, domain expert to come here to share the latest technology, and then people can have a reflection about what they did in this project, see like any better way to do the project. So this kind of the sharing can encourage people to explore more what we call the new way of working. And next, please. And then we even try to modify, make it more fun, because a lot of people, when doing the sharing section, they just relax here. They may we want to encourage people to participate. We want to make it more fun. We try to link this Take Two with the gamification. We try to conduct a workshop with the Lego series, Lego. So first of all, we ask them to try to list out what they will do it differently in that project. And then we will ask the expert to come here to share the latest domain technology. They have a reflection, the latest people skill set. They are not right in the process. They use the Lego to make it out, make it visualize. Okay, and then we will try to rebuild the project again with the Lego. So we think about like before if we conduct a workshop for like around 10 people, usually at least 2 to 3 people, they will really keep it quiet. So but we want to make it more practical. So ask them to use the Lego, so we can hear a lot of voice, a lot of discussion. The whole section is really fun. So I really highly recommend you to try this one. So in the latest, we will have a free workshop. So one of them is Take Two. We will try to, if you have time, you can come to our company to join this workshop, so you can like feel about like how we can use the Lego to conduct the Take Two. Okay, the next one, please. So the last part is knowledge capturing. We conduct a lot of sharing section, but we will try to capture everything, put it in the knowledge repository. But the most important is how we can retrieve the knowledge. So that's why the taxonomy is really important. So the next one, please. So in this part, we for example, this is example like sales report. So in the same company, same team, they will have use different word to describe the same report. So that's why it's really important for the company to get the alignment about all the term or how to categorize the document in the repository. So next, please. So for example, this is one of the department. They are, I think it's not only this company. So a lot of companies facing the same issue. In one company, they will have a field knowledge repository, maybe the share drive, notice note, SharePoint, and etc. So I can see like especially government department, they may not have a guideline on how to do the naming for the folder structure. So please, next please. So that's why we will say like this is a free formatting, and then the result is difficult to retrieve. But before, is in most of the government department, they will only rely on 1 or 2 key people, or maybe the secretary or AO, to help them to admin officer to help them to retrieve the document. So but now we want to decentralize or the operation of the knowledge repository, so then it will come up the problem. Next please. So that's why here, okay, so we have to develop a lot of rules like how to categorize the document, and then we will come up to conduct different workshop. Remember, there's no right or wrong on the taxonomy development. So, but we only need to develop one taxonomy which is the best fit our user. Next, please. So that's why this is the process for us to develop the taxonomy. First of all, we have to state the clear positioning of the different repository. For example, maybe the shared drive is only the parking lot. That means that those documents in there only the store there for temporary for 1 or 2 weeks. And what is the positioning for us to store the document in the notice log or SharePoint? So once you clarify this, the next one will be the document categorization. So we will ask them to conduct the workshop, invite some key people to come. Someone will try to develop the draft, and then we will, in the workshop, we will do the validation. So this is a lot of skill set, and that's why another workshop for taxonomy we will also share more skill. So, and also we will recommend you to do some like learning on the new model. This is a few company and also the government have also used this methodology to try to review their taxonomy. And also our government department usually they will have an annual review on the taxonomy, keep on modifying the model to categorize their document. And next, please. Yeah. Next, please. So in this one is I try to capture how to those things is okay. So a few cases I share with you to try to demonstrate about like how we can like in different important how to capture the taxonomy. First of all, what kind of knowledge is critical, and then how to categorize the document, how to conduct the model, the KM strategy. So in Arab, actually, we have to develop this what we call the Arab KM method card. So in next, please. In this card, we have a free set of a card. The first one, because I will try to facilitate the company or department to think about what make you to do the KM, because we found out this is the topic of today. The workshop is how to capture the taxonomy. But before that, one step back. Why you need to capture those knowledge? So what is the driver for you to do the KM? Aging workforce, high turnover rate, or just the working model is different? So this is a really important for you to think about like how you develop your KM program. And then in this cassette also have the latest the tools, different kind of the KM tools. Okay, cover the technology, people skill set, and also the knowledge audit. And finally, the set with this cassette also embed a set of a sample case industry best practice that we captured in the past few years. So when you think about your KM program, you can try to take up this best practice, just like the case we share with you. So you can try to adopt some market best practice in order for your model. Next, please. So the picture that you see is we're using this card to helping the Singapore organization to doing the KM strategy. So in the workshop that I'm going to share with you later, so there's one workshop we call the KM strategy. If you are interested to use this cassette to learn about how to use this cassette to develop your KM strategy plan, so you're welcome to join that section. I will give you the more detail at the end of the section. You can register from the QR code. So then my part will almost there. I hand over to Professor Choi.
Thank you, Nicole. And it's wonderful. So now I think I have to deliver you the second surprise, which is I'm going to put out a link in the chat line, and you can click on that link if you want to come into the metaverse, right? You can continue to attend my final slide of presentation in the metaverse, or you can remain in Zoom. Okay, so a link is being put out in the chat box now, and you can click on that link to go into the metaverse. I'll just give you some time to do that, and it's easy to navigate. You can try using the up arrow, down arrow key, left arrow, right arrow, and you can also use Q, W, and E on your QWERTY keyboard just to rotate around.